In today's video, I thought it would be a fun idea to do another tier list, and so today we are going to be ranking the Brio Thomas & Friends line. According to the wiki, this line first started in 1996 and ended in 2000. Even though the line appears to be very small, there is still going to be a lot to talk about in today's video. The only engines missing from this tier list are going to be Diesel and Duncan. So right away, let's rank these two engines so we don't forget about them. Diesel I feel like is a good model. The face looks very similar to the original Thomas Wooden Railway face. And how can you mess up Diesel, you know? So I'm going to have to throw Diesel in the A category. But it's not going to be the same story for Duncan. As you can see in this picture, his face is not very good. And in my opinion, his body is just a bit too stocky. So I'm going to have to put him in the last category of this tier list, which is no. Starting out with Thomas, and while some of these faces are very good, I just don't think that's the case for Thomas. So in my opinion, Thomas is going to have to go into the B category. Now this is the battery powered Thomas. Now for some reason, this shade of blue looks a lot better on this battery powered than the Thomas that I already ranked. But it does appear to have the same face, so I'm just going to put it in the B category. And now we come to Edward, where the 2021 Thomas Wooden Railway line should take some notes. Edward has all of his sets of wheels, including the smaller ones in the front, but even with the bigger wheels, they're not distracting and they're tastefully done. So for me, Edward's going to have to go into the A category. And now we come to Henry, and as you can see in this photo, the wheels are very well done once again. I also do love the face of Henry, and I think his shape is very well done. An easy A category for me. And now we come to James, and as you can tell, the wheels are very well done once again. The face on this James is very good as well. The only gripe I have is that the dome is a bit too yellow for me. I feel like that may be being nitpicky, but despite that, I'm just going to put James in the A category as well. Already, there's not much to say about Gordon, A category as well. The tender engines in this Brio Thomas & Friends line were very well done. I just don't know how I feel about the red running boards. And now we come to Percy, and Percy may look very bulky and stocky, but I do feel like his face is well done. So I'm going to put him into the A category as well. And now we come to Toby, who actually looks very similar to the Thomas Wooden Railway Toby. My only nitpick with this Toby is going to be the face, simply because when I look at this face, it doesn't really remind me of Toby. And so for that, I'm going to have to put him in the B category, but in front of the battery powered and original Thomas. And now we come to Duck, and while I love Duck's funnel and his round roof, the face just doesn't do it for me. Duck is going to go into the B category, doesn't really matter where. Up next is Oliver, and it's interesting that Brio didn't give Oliver different sized wheels when they really made the effort for Edward, Henry, Gordon, and James. I do love his round roof though, and overall he does look like a very nice model. But sadly, I can't put him in the same tier as the tender engines, which really blew this list away. And now we come to the narrow gauge engines of this Brio line. Skarloey to me looks pretty standard, there's not a whole lot to say about him. I'm going to put him in the A tier. Sir Handel and Peter Sam also look very standard to me. I don't see a whole lot of problems. I don't really mind the faces, so I'm just going to put them in the A tier as well. These narrow gauge engines so far are very well done. Now we come to Rusty, and in my opinion, Rusty just looks a bit off. For me, it's just the proportions of his body compared to his cab, but the face also isn't that bad. I just wish we had a smaller face, just like the original Rusty from the Thomas Wooden Railway line. He's going to go into the B category for me. Up next is Duke, the final narrow gauge engine of this Brio line. And right away, just looking at Duke and his face, I'm just going to put him with the rest of them in the A tier. And now we come to Diesel 261, and right away I'm going to be putting him into the C category. His proportions are just way too off for me personally. Even though his face is well done, he's still going to be a C tier engine. Coming to Daisy, I feel like this Daisy model is very well done. I feel like the only weakness that this model has is going to be the face. Even so, I still don't think it's as bad as the faces in the B tier, so I'm going to have to put Daisy into the A tier. And now we come to Stepney, who I think suffers from his proportions being way too off. He looks way too similar to Thomas, and for that, I'm going to have to put him into the C tier. Up next is Splatter and Dodge, and call it personal bias, but right away, I'm going to be putting them in the S tier. Their faces are so well done. and that's why I had to put them in the thumbnail of this video. I would kill to have Brio, Splatter, and Dodge brand new in the box on my shelf next to me. Moving on to the other two Magic Railroad characters, we have Diesel 10. While I can give props to Brio for really trying with Diesel 10, they just don't hit the mark. His face though is very good and very accurate, so because of that, he's going to avoid the lowest category and sneak into the top of the C tier. And now we come to Lady, and I really don't know where to put her because I think I just prefer the style of Lady being the original release from the Thomas Wooden Railway line. And so whenever I see a lady that is more stocky, more bulky, I really just don't know what to think about it. Even so, it's not a bad model at the end of the day. They kind of just ignored the actual size of her funnel, and for her being very stocky, I'm going to have to put her into the C tier as well. We are chugging through this Brio Thomas & Friends list, and up next is the rolling stock. And so here we come to Annie and Clarabelle, and I really don't know where to put them either because I'm not a huge fan of the Annie and Clarabelle models in the Thomas Wooden Railway line either. I think it's just the models of Annie and Clarabelle that I have in my collection. I just prefer if they're in mint condition. Mine are a bit beat up, and so I think Annie and Clarabelle are just items that really suffer when they're not in perfect condition. The only problem I would have with them is the color of the windows, and so because of that, I'm going to have to put them in the B tier. Up next is Toad the Great Western Brake Van, and for me, he's going to be an S tier. I love the face, I think he's very well done. Now we come to the basic troublesome truck, and I'm also going to put this one in the S tier because it really reminds me of the original troublesome trucks from the Thomas Wooden Railway line. The fact that it's so simple makes it so clean and pleasant to look at. Now I want to put Scruffy in the S tier, but for me personally, it's okay if the regular troublesome trucks don't have 3D faces, but I think it's just a bit weird that we didn't give Scruffy a 3D face here. He is a named character, he does have an episode dedicated to him, and so it just would have been nice to see him get a 3D face, just like Toad. That's just personal preference though, but even so, I'm still going to put him into the A tier. And now we come to Terrence, and for me personally, that's a no for me. He's going to go into the last category along with Duncan. Up next is Birdie the Bus. I love the shade of red, I love his face. The only thing I don't really vibe with is going to be the shade of blue that they use for these windows. I think it could have worked if they used a lighter blue. This blue is just a bit too dark for me. But I like the attempt at giving the windows some color, and so for that I'm going to have to keep him into the B tier. Up next is Butch the Breakdown Vehicle, and right away I'm going to have to put him into the C tier. There's just a bit too much plastic for me. And now we come to Cranky, and right away I am not a fan. I don't like when accessories or destinations are locked on to pieces of track, which is also why I dislike the new Thomas Wooden Railway line so much. It just comes across as cheap to me because you're giving less freedom to whoever is building a layout and using this Cranky. The shade of green is also a bit too bright for me, and so for that I'm just going to have to put him into the last category. And then down here is just a duplicate picture of Annie and Clarabelle. And so that is it folks, we just ranked the entire Brio Thomas & Friends line. After ranking this line, I would love to get my hands on many of these models. I would love to have a brand new Splatter and Dodge, Toad, the original Troublesome Truck, Scruffy, and even a James model. Another interesting look into what the world of Thomas & Friends merchandise used to be. But let me know what you think about this tier list in the comment section below, and let me know what you think about this Brio Thomas & Friends line. It's interesting for sure. And let me know if you grew up or have any of the items from this line. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.